All right, I think I've got one more episode in me tonight. So, because it's a topic I really, really wanted to get to, and then I still have more content I want to cover for the men, but I will get to that in subsequent episodes over the coming weeks. But I wanted to talk about emotions for men. And emotions, I think it's very important to establish what emotions are, particularly for men, and for women, but we're talking about the men right now. Emotions are beliefs. So if we understand that as we have this conversation, I think it will make a lot more sense, because emotions, I think, is a very subjective sort of topic. It's very uncomfortable. It's very squishy. Men they don't operate in their feelings. That is unfamiliar territory. Women operate more primarily from emotion and feeling, and men have a tendency to operate more from logic and reason. So to talk about emotions initially out of the gate, I know it's going to feel uncomfortable, but hang with me, because I promise you it's worth it. So I want to speak life into men. I have a passion for that. And being a single woman that is looking for, I'm to the point where I really understand what I'm looking for, and I'm healed enough to have value to bring into a real viable relationship, right? The broken version of Amy couldn't handle a real relationship, and I'm there. And what would that look like, and what kind of man would that look like? But also for the sake of the people around me, and my community and my culture, for my God kids, for the children that I see around me, like, what kind of men do they need? What do I see for my friends and peers who are out there dating, and what kind of men do we need? And I see a bunch of very broken, beat up men, and that breaks my heart, because and being a veteran as well, working with a lot of suicidal vets, obviously that's a very male dominated industry, and also men have a tendency to commit suicide more often. Why? Because they carry a lot, and they don't have places to express this. They don't have places where they can have an outlet. They are trained for war, but they're not trained for the fact that when they're in war, there are going to be broken pieces. It's part of it. There are going to be broken and missing pieces. So they're not trained or told, okay, I'm a warrior, I go in, now I come out, I have broken pieces, now I feel like I'm failing as a warrior. I was trained for war, now I keep going into other subsequent battles. Each battle takes more pieces, so I continue to now, it rolls into this snowball effect of I keep taking losses and losses and losses, because each battle I go into, less and less equipped. I have less pieces. How do they find these pieces? How do we help them find those pieces? And I specifically had actually a veteran ask me to do an episode on PTSD and how it affects relationships. And I think this will speak to that, maybe not in the way that he would want particularly, but I'm going to speak to it from what I understand on how do we heal this space. And I think a misconception is, well, I just need to find a woman that can handle it. And to some degree, certainly finding a woman that can handle it, but ultimately responsibility needs to go back to the man of, how do I find the broken pieces and put myself back together? The answer isn't, I have PTSD and I'm broken irreparably forever, and I'm just going to, fumble my way through the rest of my life as this limping through life with this, and I just need someone who's tough enough to take the beatings. That's not the right answer. There will be a reason that you cycle through relationships like you cycle through underwear, if that is the mentality. It isn't for someone else to fix. Now, it is for other people to come around you in community and help you and love you through it, but ultimately you got to want to be well, and you have to want to do the work for you. It starts with you. I understand we, put men in positions where, yes, they go to war, either figuratively or literally, and then they're not told how to handle the fallout from war, right? Be a warrior, go to war, do the thing. When you come back and you're broken, we got nothing for you. You're on your own. I understand that, and I have empathy. So I want to speak to that, okay? So that goes back to man's voice. It starts in some ways with their voice. So the voice, our voices are very powerful. Again, I have a biblical worldview, so, that's just how I come at these things, and it has served me well. It has brought me from a place of being so suicidal that I had not only a plan, but a backup to my plan. And I lived that way for a solid year, and then it would kind of flare up throughout the course of the next few years after that. So I'm just telling you my story, but I'm also telling you from a place of seeing what has worked for other men that have done the work, that have healed, that have come on the other side, that they're not a victim of PTSD. Be it PTSD from stuff that happened to them as a child, which quite often is the case. A lot of people that go into the military, they're coming in with a whole lot of other stuff. They're running from something, right? And this is an outlet. This is an escape for them. Even if it is, they're in a great deal of pain and they have a nature of aggression and violence. And this just seems like a great place to make a living at it, okay? Not saying that's the right answer, but it's speaking to a point that I'm going to revisit. So our voices, how do we express? How do men express when they are hurt? And most often when they're little, that's when they're told to shut up, stop crying about it, right? They don't, and not that people should go through life just crying about every little thing, but there does have to be a process for moving through something. Just pretending that it didn't happen or pretending that it doesn't hurt you isn't the right answer. Do you need to hold on to it and have a chip on your shoulder and wear it like a badge the rest of your life? Absolutely not. We need tools where we process it and we move through it and we move on to the next thing, right? And we gain tools, and we have deprived our little boys, of those tools, and their voice has been taken. And there's actually a Bible story about that, where there's a dumb spirit that attacked. It was a man at the time, but Jesus had said, "Bring the boy to me." And what he was expressing in that moment is that this is a dumb spirit that has been around in this man's life since he was a boy, and it has afflicted him, and he has lost his voice because of it, and it continues to come back because there's not been a safe place for him to speak, and it's been shut down so often. It hasn't been dealt with properly. So men typically don't ask for help because the enemy has jumped on them at some point, either as a child or as an adult. They get into a relationship with a woman and it could even be their mother, or a relationship after that. Quite often there's a correlation there. But they tried to speak imperfectly. They didn't have it all figured out. They don't have the words for it. They don't have the language for it. They're just trying to either speak because they're in pain or they're hurting, or they have a question, or they're trying to express something about how they feel. And either one of two things happens. Either they're either doing it because they're trying to express how they feel because someone is demanding it of them. Like, here, come on, tell me what you're thinking. I want you to talk to me. I want you to share your emotions, and you're trying to meet a demand, or you're simply trying to exercise your voice, and it gets shut down because the woman doesn't know how to respond to it, or the man, even the man, your dad didn't know how to respond to it, and shut up, why you talk so much? Or, your woman or your girlfriend is like, what's wrong with you? Why are you crying? Or what do you mean? And they get offended because you say something imperfectly. You're trying to come up with a way to express it. And it's just simply coming out unpolished. It's coming out kind of raw. It's coming out where you're just trying to explore, like, how do I really feel? You don't have it identified of, these are the broken pieces and I've put a name to it. You're trying to explore and maybe even ask for help on, how do I name this thing? And you get shut down. And you get shut down in such a way that's like, well, fine, it's not safe to talk about it, so I'm just going to stop talking about it. And the expectation is you just take it. You just take it constantly. Men are designed to be tough. Yes, men are designed to be tough. But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't have a place to process and an outlet to work through things as they come. Not let it build up where years and years and years of, hey, you're strong enough, so you should just take it. Sure, That'd be one way of going at it. But, if you ask gang members quite often, that's, hey, you're strong enough so you could take it. Hey, your own man or the fourth, husband or boyfriend is beating you or abusing you. And so you're in a gang because you're in pain and it's coming out in anger. And no one has showed you the tools of, hey, I might be angry and I might be hurt, but I could go hit the books. Hey, I'm gonna have to fight my way to the library, and I'm gonna get a lot of ass beatings on the way, and I'm gonna have people jump me in my neighborhood for trying to change and break out of this. But the answer to my pain shouldn't be violence, even though quite often that is the go-to place for it. So we need to look at our men and say, hey, what's happening here? What's coming out, and where is that coming from? And has he had a chance to speak at all to anybody? Is he in community where he has other men that he can talk to and work this through? Now, the struggle with that is often if I admit that I'm in pain or admit that I can't do something, that is synonymous for men with a loss of respect. Men size each other up from the minute they go, "Sup? What's good? How you doing?" From the minute they interact with one another, they are immediately sizing up one another. And what kind of energy are you putting out? And who's dominant in this position? And if you're able to, rather than come at it like, problem, when somebody looks at you, like, hey, you got a problem, versus, hey, how you doing? You offer softness. You're not looking for a fight all the time. That's healthy. Now, if you encounter men like that, those are the men that we need to go to and model after. Hey, maybe dad wasn't around. Uncle was abusive. Boyfriends, mom's boyfriends were abusive. I've suffered from either abuse or neglect. Or dad was around, but he was a horrific example. Or he was completely absent, right? All of these things contribute to, I never had a place to go to show me healthy relating. I never had a place to go where I could talk or learn the language that I need for things that no one has ever shown me. And women can raise boys, but it takes a man to raise men. It takes a father specifically, a dad figure. Even if they're not biologically yours, it takes a dad to raise a man. Okay, so look for men that have the fruit. Look for men that are operating from a place of confidence, not bravado. They're two different things, and I think most men know the difference. But a place of confidence, a place that there's real fruit, a place where they have sons and daughters that respect them and look up to them. They're plugged into their community. Those are places that men go so that they can have a voice. But women, we need to recognize that these men, yes, go there for that, but when they come home, if they want to be in relationship with you, now mind you, they've gotten really good at building themselves up and going through this stuff on their own and solo. If they get there without you, they're not going to need you on the other side of it. So knowing the difference of, are you called to the evolution of a man? Now that's not the same of, this takes a significant amount of discernment really to understand this piece. So this is kind of more complex relating, but for people that are to that point in their relationship, this will hit home and they'll understand in their point in their journey. But you call to the evolution of a man. It's not the same as, he has great potential. I mean, he still lives in his mom's basement, and I drive the car everywhere we go, and he can't hold down a job, but he's got great potential. It's not the same thing, okay? It's not the same thing. It's a man that is good-willed, that is good-intentioned, a man that is trying, a man that actively, he wants to be a man of character, but he doesn't have an example of it, and he's trying to find it. You as a woman can do a lot. You're not his mama and you're not his medic. Let's be clear on that, but you can do a lot to draw that out of them, to be his helper, to encourage him in that, to encourage him to go play basketball with the guys where they, go out afterwards and have a slice of pizza and they have real conversation. that helps him find the language. So when you're asking him, hey babe, how you feel? What's going on? He's quiet. What's happening in there? That he can find the language, and you recognize that you have to be kind. You have to allow him to speak imperfectly. Women give grace for that all the time. We just word vomit all over everything. We say things in a lot more words a lot of times than we need to. Sorry, I can't help it. But we just talk it out, right? We just talk it out with other women. We don't give men the same space. We expect them to be strong and also be able to operate in this place of logic. Now, mind you, logic is what, they're designed to do if you're looking at it from a kind of a tribal mentality or a war mentality. Feelings don't serve them a whole lot out on the battlefield. Feelings don't serve them a whole lot when they're manning the wall. They're logical. They're evaluating constantly situations. They're evaluating risk. They're evaluating failure points. They're constantly training to cover those weaknesses. So emotions are not a go-to place for them. When you ask them to go there, allow them to fumble around with it. And they might even say something that offends you or comes out a little bit raw. Watch your face and ask a question of them. Press in, be curious, and help them wade through it and say, hey, you have space here to work through it. I genuinely care about how you feel, so I'm willing to walk through this with you, even though it might kind of be a little bit ugly, and some of the things you might say will be maybe a lot unpolished. All right, so I'm going to leave it at that for this episode. I've got a lot of other places that I'm very interested in exploring with you, but I want this to be an encouragement to our men. You guys have been battle weathered in so many ways, be it in the literal or in the spiritual or the emotional. Our culture right now is doing you no favors, and they're trying to beat that back in you. I want to call that forth in you and let you know that there are women out there that will know how to handle this space in you. And if you are willing to do the work, we are willing to sit there in that space with you. So I want to encourage, both men and women to recognize this in one another, that we're not browbeating one another, that we're doing the work to be able to show up for and celebrate our differences and help each other out of this period where we have really flipped things kind of upside down, and we need to get it back in the right order. And what does that look like? So that's identifying the problem, and then what is the solution or solutions, and how do we come at it as a team, as a culture. And it starts, obviously with you, and it starts in your family, and then we can look at, changing the world and getting things back on their axis the way that they should be. So I hope this is encouraging to you, and I've got more episodes to come, so stay tuned.